Welcome to Why Knowledge Matters.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. So I'm looking forward to elaborate on the topic today, which is resilience.
Yes, and I'm really excited. I think our viewers are excited too.
Mhm.
Now, how would you describe resilience?
Resilience is the capacity to overcome adversity. It is also the fact that one can, start living a good, humanly accepted life after having been through all kind of difficulties, and those difficulties normally should have been enough for that person to either think about suicide, think about giving up, being very depressed, etc.
What made you interested in resilience, in particularly, and in psychology in general?
Thank you. This is a great question. I was doing my internship, doing my bachelor's degree at Children's Aid Society in Ottawa, Canada. And then as I was going through houses with my mentor, which was, she was a senior clinical social worker, and I saw how I had a chance to understand the problematic of child abuse and neglect in a very, very practical, clinical way. Then it's kind of came straight to, in connection with my value, with my origins. I am from Haiti, and there we didn't have back then. We didn't have a system that would take care, that would just think about those abused and neglect children. And I said to myself, I'm gonna do anything I can to bring a significant contribution to that field, so that every children in the world could benefit 100 years ago through my writings, through my research. Because when you do research, when you write, when you do shows like this, although you addressing today's generation, but you will leave materials. You are addressing, you're talking to people 100 years ago from now. So that was my motivation. And I also always have a deep care about people, about people suffering for all kind of reasons, people committing suicide. I've always wanted to understand why would someone want to end his life. So that's basically the motivation that helped me to choose psychology and human development and resilience in general.
Why does resilience matter? In other words, why does resilience or the research of resilience matter?
It matters because unlike psychology, clinical psychology, which great field and looking to help people to maintain the balance. But if you go to see a psychologist, most likely they will try to find in your past what went wrong, to explain in the present why things are not where they should be. But resilience is prospective. It looks, in resilience, you look at the person's strength, whatever is left after having lost everything, every hope, the little piece of strength, of abilities that is left, and you work with that to project the person into a bright future. So that's why I really that's what I really love about I like about resilience, is the fact that you're looking in people abilities to overcome adversities, to overcome traumas, and to conquer traumas, and become, after you've touched the deep rock bottom, and you can bounce back. And that's what resilience does. It helps you bounce back.
Can you give me a concrete example where you have testified resilience in your, for example, professional life?
Before I give you a concrete example like that, I can go to history to give you some concrete and wonderful example. The Holocaust. 6 million Jews during the Holocaust, they lost their lives due to Hitler's heinous politic. So what happened is, you find there's two things that we realized during the Holocaust. Suicide was at a very low level. People on the at Auschwitz, for instance, concentration camps, they didn't try to commit suicide as much as we would have thought they would. And then a lot of them, they came out of the camp, and they start having a normal, life again. Not that they weren't traumatized by what happened, but they were able to conquer adversity, to overcome um, um, anything that happened during the Holocaust. And one of them, very famous guy, Primo Levi, he wrote a book, exceptional book about it, about his experience. And there's other famous professor, my mentor, um, Professor Boris Cyrulnik. He's the one that wrote um, a lot of books about resilience. So those people, they are a living example of what happened, and how human being we were capable of create some kind of shield, mental shield, and to during times that are considered extremely difficult. And we have people. We have Nelson Mandela, for instance, spent most of his life in jail, but he became the president of South Africa. So that's, and then myself too. I was raised in a country like Haiti, where all kind of thing was happening, child abuse and stuff. But in my clinical practice, something wonderful happened. I was responsible to study resilience throughout the province of Ottawa, which is the largest province of Canada in terms of superficie, in terms of geographically. So I had to understand uh, concretely resilience in children, in maltreated children, um, uh, throughout the lens, through the lens of social workers. They're working in 50 for 50 children's ed societies. So I went there. I traveled all around the province, and to survey, to talk to to understand, to listen to them, because they are considered resilience mentors. So, and then what came out is two things. You understand, you listen to the stories of the of about children, abuse, child abuse, neglect, the extent of the problem, and the reality. It's not a dream. We would think that because we're in America and things like that, they were like almost they are not for us. But no, we find that there's a huge amount of children on a daily basis who are exposed to abuse, to neglect, for all kind of reason, because the parents they consume prohibited, drugs. They because they are traumatized themselves for all kind of reason, for because they participate in wars and they came back, they traumatized, and they don't really understand the full scope of um, 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 abuse and neglect, and the fact that they were inflicting it on their children. And you meet all kind of stories, true stories from experimented um, uh, um, uh, resilience mentors and social workers. And that's where we clearly, concretely understand um, how resilience was important, how people, most of those kids, they became very responsible adults. Some of them, they went all the way through university. Some of them, they were able to open business, to get married, to have families, and to discontinue the cycle of abuse and neglect. So that was a very important study. It was part of my thesis, doctoral thesis, as well as a publication that went to a journal in Belgium, Europe.
Why does resilience matter in the future when we look at the post COVID-19 area?
It matters because a huge amount of people, unfortunately, are traumatized by the whole situation of related due to COVID. The fact that people have to stay home, confined. This was new for a lot of families in our culture. We are living, beyond the industrialization era, where both parents, mom and dad, they have to go to work. They had to, and then all of a sudden they find themselves at home all day, and it's very, very difficult to sit there not doing anything, to use creativity to find things to do, and conflict became uh, uh, um, more um, frequent. And what happened is, no later than last week, there was a rise in death due to abuse in the region of Ottawa, directly linked to the situation of COVID. So when you look at this, and the fact that it's been clinically proven that a lot of people, a huge amount of people that had COVID would end up having mental issues due to the way the virus uh, um, work within them, within their body, their biology. So it will be very, very important, and I'm very glad that I can see the movement from government, from politicians, from healthcare professionals, to tend to think about how we're going to help the world population to recover mentally, and to find the strength to 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 become useful member of society again. And in that sense, every movement will have to lean towards helping people get back resilience again. So now, at the midterm, at the long term, it will be very, very, very important for people to reach out to other people, to keep that human chain, um, to face the distance aspect, the disconnect aspect that comes from COVID, and the confinement, because we are fundamentally beings of connection. We it has always been like that for us. If we are able to survive, if we are not extinct like other species, it's mainly because we were able to cooperate to cooperate better than other species, to find ways to live in communities. So it's gonna be important again to regain that uh, um, a sense of community, sense of connection, sense of connectivity, because this is how our brain become the plasticity of the brain, the fact that the brain help us to adapt to difficulties. This is how it develops within it's within the capacity of the brain to exert his plasticity uh, take place better when we connect between us as human beings, when we have that sense that there's someone there for us if something happened and we are not alone, because loneliness is a very, very, can be a very destructive thing for us, even though we need we need to take some distance. For instance, if you are a scientist, if you to do your work, to do for example, part of your work as the host of this show is to take some time alone, to prepare it. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about the negative aspect of disconnect. It's the fact that we are forced to be distant from our loved ones. Even though when they die, we cannot assist to the funeral. What it means for millions of people is that they are not able to do closure, to just be there and cry and express and unload everything, every negative charge that mentally they are carrying. So it will be very, very important in the future to reconnect people with themselves again, to find aspect of resilience that's worked, the ability to overcome adversity again, to feel that we are one part of a great a great team that we call humanity, and to feel that aspect again.
So what make some people display resilience whereas others might not, or might have proven less resilience, for example, with coping with certain traumas, for example? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Thank you. This is a great question. Uh, why is it that to facing apparently equal adversities, some people will some people will tend to will choose, for instance, suicide attempt, whereas others, they will overcome the adversity, and further than that, they will become mentors for those who've been through the situation, those who became resilient. What happened is there's many factors. One factor is individual factor. We were born, although all of us, we were born with the capacity to become resilient. It takes the way our brain was wired. It takes the right environment to help us believe in ourselves, believe in a higher being, to have resort when when to find solace when everything seems to be catastrophic. That's one aspect. And the other aspect is the quality of the environment that we are exposed with during our development, during our trajectory. Some people, unfortunately, they find themselves in very high conflict environment. And when you take that high conflict environment, um, um, not only abuse, neglect, but domestic violence, parents who are fighting, moms who get beat, all kind of things like that. We call them the weak factors. So the more you have those factors, the less likely is for someone to overcome, because it's not impossible. It's not impossible to overcome adversity, provided that the abuse, provided that the abusive, the negative, the adverse situation find a stop or an end, so you can start your way to resilience. But that's not the case for millions of people. They have to find heaven in in drugs, in marijuana, in things that in alcohol, things that will suppress the pain, but for a short time. After that, when you wake up, the reality, you will face the reality. Reality will strike again. So that's some of the reason why some people, despite of the fact that they have the capacity, but the environment will make it in a way that the capacity won't be able to be developed. So other people, they they find themselves for some reason, for all kind of reason, in an environment that strengthen their abilities by, loving families, and after school when they come back home, they have a hug from parents who asking them, how you doing? How was your day? Whereas other kids who've been through all kind of difficulties at school, back home, they don't have that. They have to go to their rooms, depressed and stuff like that. So these are all factors that makes people, and there's also the fact that the individual abilities, such as the ability to believe in yourself, the ability to believe in a higher power, the ability um, um, to solve problem, to ask what do I need to do, the ability to mentalize what happened to you. By mentalizing, I mean to question, why is this happening to me? What does that mean? Is there anyone that can help me in my family, in my community? Where do I go? Some people can't do that. They just get overwhelmed by the situation, and they cannot mentalize it, and to find that little piece of light at the end of the tunnel. So when you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you become you are everything that is hopelessness became your big part of your mental system, helplessness and hopelessness. So you lose your sense of existence. The sense of existence is the fact that because if we exist because of others, because we have others, which is different than to be living. If we exist is because there's others who we live for somehow. We have to report to someone. We have to. Someone has to be proud of us if we accomplish something, and someone will be sad if something happened to us. But when you lose that sense of existence, you do not exist for anyone. What is left, what you're in your subconscious, you don't need to be living. It's not worth it. So, and that's often the difference between those who make it, who overcome, who conquer, and those who did not, who cannot, and who are subject to all kind of negative options.
Your favorite book or author and wishes for the future?
My favorite book ever is a book entitled in French, Un merveilleux malheur, a marvelous, a wonderful adversity, like I can say. So in that book, this was a bestseller from Dr. Boris Cyrulnik, and that's where he was explaining not only how a lot of people, to something, adversity was good to them, and because adversity makes you realize things that you would never things that would have been impossible for you to discover, to realize about yourself, especially strength, abilities that you are forced to realize that emerge only in the face of adversity. So he was explaining, he carefully explained the fact that this book is not written to glorify adversities. You don't wish adversity to anyone, but the truth is, we all will face adversity, and we rather see sometimes the fact that there's abilities, facing adversity will force us to become a better version of ourselves. And then I really, really, really love this approach, this angle of studying adversity. And this book was, and because of my discovery of this book, I went after him to contact him, to find him, and he became my mentor doing my thesis, doing my doctoral studies.
Dr. Lewis, it has been great to having you. Thank you so much for being on our show.
It's been great to participate. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.